The alarm didn't sound like an alarm. It pulsed low rhythmic, the kind of noise designed not to panic, but to alert people who were already afraid of making mistakes. 12 minutes past midnight. Deep in the sublevels beneath Vought Tower, in a wing that didn't appear on any floor plan, accessible to cleaning staff, or even most executives, the lights in Lab 7 had turned red. Project Lens. That's what they called it internally. The documentation was sparse, the team smaller than a startup, and the budget buried so deep in R&D expenditures that it looked like a rounding error. Lens wasn't about Compound V. Everyone knew VV was the product. V was the brand. V built gods and sold them to a country desperate to believe in something bulletproof and beautiful. But V had limits. There were things it couldn't do, places it couldn't reach, biological locks it couldn't pick. So Lens went looking somewhere else. Somewhere that didn't involve chemistry at all. They'd been trying to fold space, not teleportation, not portals. Something smaller. A needle threaded between the seams of reality, just wide enough to pull through energy particles, maybe a sample or two. No one expected it to work. That's what made it exciting. The tear appeared at 11:47. One of the monitors caught it first, a shimmer in the containment field, a distortion that looked like heat rising off asphalt, but colder. The lead researcher, a woman with 22 years at Vought, and a non-disclosure agreement thick enough to stop bullets, didn't move. She watched the shimmer widen. 3 seconds. 4. The edges flickered unstable, and then something fell through. Small, pink, round. It hit the lab floor and rolled. Once, twice, stopped. The tear closed. The shimmer vanished. The monitors went blank, then rebooted, cycling through diagnostic screens that reported nothing unusual, as if the last 5 seconds hadn't happened. The thing on the floor didn't move. It lay there, curved and soft, no bigger than a toddler, limbs stubby and still. One of the techs took a step closer. The lead researcher put a hand out, not touching him, just a warning. No one knew what they were looking at. No one wanted to be the first to find out wrong. "Scan it," she said. They ran everything. Infrared, biological markers, Compound V spectrum analysis. The results came back fast, and they came back strange. No V, no genetic markers that matched anything in the database. The cellular structure looked almost like a joke, too simple, too flexible, like something a child would draw if asked to imagine what life looked like before bones. But it was breathing, slowly, steadily. And when the thermal scan rolled across its body, they could see a pulse. "It's alive. Obviously." "Then what is it?" No one answered. The lead researcher walked to her desk, pulled up a blank file, and typed 2 words, "anomalous vacuum event." Then she stopped, stared at the screen, and added a third K01. The thing stirred. Not waking. Just shifting in its sleep the way infants do, peaceful and unaware. One of the younger techs knelt down, gloves on hands, shaking slightly, and nudged it. Gently. The thing made a noise. Soft, almost a hum. Then it rolled over and went still again. They decided to let it sleep. What else could they do? Wake it, ask it questions. They didn't even know if it had language. The lab was secure, the doors were locked, the cameras were recording. Morning would come, and someone higher up the chain would make a call about what happened next. Until then, they'd observe. At 0034, one of the techs brought food. A sandwich from the break room, some chips, a cup of water. He set it down near the thing, not too close, just in case it woke up hungry. Then he stepped back and waited. The thing opened its eyes. Black. Round. No whites, No irises, just two dark pools that looked at the food, then at the tech, then back at the food. It reached out stubby arms, no fingers really, just rounded nubs, and touched the sandwich, poked it. Then in a motion so fast the cameras barely caught it, the thing inhaled. Not with its hands, with its mouth. Its entire body seemed to hollow out the air around it, bending inward, and the sandwich vanished. So did the plate. So did the chips, the cup, and the metal tray they'd been sitting on. The thing swallowed once, tilted its head, and made that hum again, satisfied. The tech stood frozen. The tray had been steel. The cup had been ceramic. Both gone. Not crushed, not torn apart, just gone. Did it shut up? The lead researcher leaned closer to her screen, replaying the footage frame by frame. The thing's mouth had opened wider than its entire body, a vacuum strong enough to pull objects straight into some internal cavity that shouldn't exist. And now it was sitting there, blinking slowly, looking around the lab like it was waiting for something else interesting to happen. She typed another line into the file, extreme suction response. Capable of ingesting solid matter. Disposition unknown. Recommend containment. Then she closed the file, locked it, and sent a single message upward through the chain. Do not let this leave the building. By morning, K01 had a nickname. Someone in the lab called it Kirby, after an old video game character that swallowed enemies whole. The name stuck. It was easier than calling it an asset. Easier than calling it a specimen. Easier than admitting they had no idea what they were looking at, where it came from, or what it could do. Vought kept it. Locked it down. Filed it under projects so classified that even asking about them could end a career. And for a while that worked. The thing stayed in the lab. It ate. It slept. It didn't ask questions because it didn't speak. It didn't resist because it didn't understand there was anything to resist. But eventually someone higher up had an idea. A bright, terrible, inevitable idea. If they couldn't control it, maybe they could sell it. 3 weeks later, Kirby had a social media presence. Not by choice. The creature didn't understand cameras. It didn't understand branding demographics or the algorithmic machinery that turned attention into revenue. It just existed round and pink and oddly cheerful, while Vaught's marketing division worked around it like sculptors shaping clay that refused to hold a form. Ashley Barrett stood in the war room on the 42nd floor, staring at 3 monitors displaying engagement metrics that climbed faster than anything she'd seen since Homelander's debut. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Her hands shook slightly, not from caffeine, but from the kind of exhaustion that came from knowing she'd built something that could collapse at any moment. "This thing is gold," she said to no one in particular. The room was full PR reps, social strategists, a guy from legal who kept asking questions no one wanted to answer. No drugs, no sex tapes, no leaked DMs calling someone a slur. Just... She gestured at the screen where a clip of Kirby waving at a crowd looped endlessly. Just smiles. One of the junior analysts leaned forward. The focus groups are calling it trustworthy. When's the last time we got that word? Ashley didn't answer. She was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Trustworthy was good. Trustworthy sold action figures. But trustworthy was also fragile. One wrong move, one video of the creature doing something the public didn't like, and the whole narrative would flip. She'd seen it happen before. Heroes went from gods to monsters in the time it took a phone to upload. "We keep it controlled," she said. "No unsupervised appearances, no interviews. And for the love of Christ, do not let it get hungry in public." Someone laughed nervously. Ashley didn't join in. She'd read the lab reports. She knew what Kirby could do when it inhaled. The tray incident had been classified, locked behind clearance levels that most of the people in this room would never reach. But she'd seen the footage. She'd watched metal vanish into a mouth that shouldn't exist. And she'd made a note to herself, underlined twice, never show this. Across town, in a penthouse that overlooked half of Manhattan, Homelander sat alone with a tablet. The apartment was silent. Not peaceful, just empty. He didn't need much a bed. He rarely used a kitchen that existed for appearances, walls of glass that reminded him he was above everyone else. Literally. He could see the city spreading out below, millions of people going about their lives, tiny and irrelevant and completely dependent on him, whether they knew it or not. He scrolled through the analytics, his analytics. The numbers that told him how much the world loved him, or at least how much they clicked on his face. Views, shares, sentiment scores. He knew them all by heart. Refreshed them hourly, watched them the way other people watched the stock market. And they were down, not by much, not enough for anyone else to notice. But he noticed. A 2% dip in engagement, a 3% drop in positive mentions. Small. Barely a blip. Except it had started exactly 3 weeks ago, the same day Vought rolled out their new hero. He opened the comparison tab, his numbers next to Kirby's, side by side. The gap wasn't wide, not yet. But it was there, and it was growing, and every time he looked at it, he felt something tighten in his chest that he couldn't name and didn't want to. People loved Kirby. That was the problem. They loved it in a way that didn't require effort, didn't demand performance. It just showed up, waved, ate some cake in front of a camera, and the internet exploded. No speeches, no saving lives on live television, no carefully crafted moments designed to remind everyone that he, Homelander, the greatest hero alive, was the only thing standing between them and chaos. He closed the tablet and set it down. Screen first, harder than necessary. Cute, that's what they called it. Cute. Like it was a puppy, like it hadn't come from a lab accident Vought was still trying to bury. He'd read the reports too, the ones Ashley thought were locked down. He had access to everything. He always did. And what he'd read had made him pause just for a moment before he filed it away under problems he'd deal with later. Kirby wasn't a soup. It wasn't juiced on compound V. It wasn't even human. It was something else, something outside the system, and that made it unpredictable. Dangerous. Not because it wanted to be, but because it didn't understand the rules. Homelander stood and walked to the window. His reflection stared back sharp and perfect, the blue suit catching the light just right. He smiled at himself. Practiced. Controlled. The smile that had launched 1,000 campaigns, sold 1 million products, made grown men weep with gratitude when he shook their hands. And somewhere out there, a round pink thing was getting the same reaction, without even trying. He didn't hate it. Not yet. Hate required respect, and he didn't respect things that didn't know their place. What he felt was closer to irritation. The kind you'd feel toward a fly buzzing near your face. Harmless, annoying, easy to swat. But not here. Not now. Not in a way that people would see. By the afternoon, Kirby had a schedule. Ashley built it personally, color-coded and airtight. Morning controlled meet and greet at a Vought-sponsored community center. Afternoon photo op with local kids all pre-screened, all briefed on how to behave. Evening, nothing. Kirby went back to the facility, back to the room they'd set up that looked less like a lab and more like a daycare, and it stayed there until the next day started. It was working. The creature cooperated in the way animals cooperated, not understanding, just responding. It waved when people waved. It sat when someone gestured at a chair. It ate whatever they gave it, which was a lot because keeping it fed turned out to be the only reliable way to keep it calm. One of the handlers, a woman who'd worked with exotic animals before Vought hired her, for reasons she still didn't fully understand, knelt next to Kirby during a break between events. The creature looked at her, blinking slowly, and made a small sound. Not words. Just a hum. Content. "You don't know what's happening, do you?" she said quietly. Kirby tilted its head, reached out with a stubby arm and patted her hand. Gently, the way a child would. She pulled back, not in fear, but in something close to sadness. This thing, whatever it was, didn't belong here. It didn't belong anywhere near Vought, near cameras, near the machinery that chewed people up and spit them out with better hair and emptier eyes. But it was here, and she was paid to make sure it stayed. That night, back in the penthouse, Homelander stood at the window again. The city glittered below. Beautiful. His. He thought about Kirby, about the way people looked at it. The way they smiled, really smiled, not the polite performance they gave him when he flew by. And he thought about how easy it would be to make that stop. Not directly. Never directly. He was smarter than that. But there were ways, accidents, misunderstandings, situations that could be shaped, controlled, turned into opportunities. He'd done it before. He'd do it again. He just needed the right moment. His reflection smiled back at him from the glass. Perfect. Patient. "They cheer for a balloon," he said to the empty room. "I'll pop it." And somewhere across the city, in a facility with no windows and doors that locked from the outside, Kirby curled up in a corner and went to sleep. Dreaming, maybe. Or not. It was impossible to tell. Either way, it didn't know what was coming. Godolphin University didn't look like a place where people got hurt. The campus spread across 40 acres of manicured green buildings designed to look collegiate and aspirational, like something out of a brochure for schools that promised futures instead of debt. Students walked between classes with backpacks and coffee, laughing, texting, performing the rituals of normal college life. Except nothing here was normal. Everyone knew it. They just pretended otherwise. The rankings were posted every Monday morning on a digital board outside the student center. Names, numbers, a clean, brutal hierarchy that told you exactly where you stood and how far you had to climb. The board updated in real time, fed by an algorithm that tracked everything. Class performance, media presence, social engagement, combat assessments. It was gamified education. Survival dressed up as opportunity. And everyone played. Because at the end of the year, the top-ranked students got drafted. Contracts, teams, the kinds of careers that turned anonymous soups into household names. Everyone else got to try again next year, or drop out, or take jobs in security and marketing for heroes who'd made it past the gate. The board didn't care which. It just kept counting. Kirby arrived on campus on a Tuesday, 3 days before ranking day trials. Vought had framed it as outreach, community engagement, a chance for Godolphin students to meet the newest face of heroism in an informal educational setting. The press release used words like inspiring and accessible. What it didn't mention was that Vought needed content. Kirby's numbers were strong, but they'd plateau. The algorithm demanded fresh angles. And nothing generated clicks like putting something new in front of people who'd kill for attention. The creature was walked across the quad by 2 handlers, flanked by a small security detail that tried very hard to look relaxed. Students stopped, stared. Phones came out instantly recording before anyone had time to think. Kirby waved. It always waved. The crowd responded with the kind of noise that wasn't quite cheering but wasn't quite casual either. Excited, hungry. In the back of the crowd, a group of 5 students watched and didn't wave back. They were top 10, all of them. The kind of students who didn't go to parties unless there were cameras, who didn't spar unless someone was keeping score. They had names, but names didn't matter as much as ranks. Number 3, number 7, number 4. The board knew them. Everyone else just knew they were close. "Special guest challenge," one of them said. A girl with short dark hair and a jawline sharp enough to cut. Her ability was tactile touch, something know its weak points. Useful in a fight. Even more useful in a ranking system that rewarded efficiency. That's what the email said. Kirby's the challenge. "It's a photo op," another one muttered. A guy with kinetic absorption, the kind of power that made him nearly untouchable in hand-to-hand. He was number 4, and he wanted number 3. Badly. "They're not letting us actually fight it." "Why not?" The girl smiled, not warmly. "Vought wants engagement. We want rank. Everybody wins." They didn't say the rest out loud. They didn't have to. The math was simple. Fight Kirby. Win or lose it, didn't matter. What mattered was the footage. Viral clips, highlight reels. The kind of moments that made scouts take notice and algorithms push your name higher. If Kirby cooperated, great. If it didn't, even better. Either way, they'd get what they needed. One of the others, a kid with electrical projection who'd been hovering at number 9 for 2 months, looked uncomfortable. "We don't even know what it does. It smiles and eats cake." The girl checked her phone, scrolling through Kirby's media presence with the detached efficiency of someone running a cost-benefit analysis. That's it. That's the whole thing. Vought wouldn't bring something dangerous to campus. Vought brought us. That landed. No one argued. They knew what they were, what this place made them. Godolkin didn't train heroes. It trained products, and products either performed or got replaced. By evening, the rumor had spread. Students clustered in common rooms, dorm hallways, anywhere screens could be shared and theories could be swapped. The official line was vague. Ranking Day would feature special programming with Kirby as a guest participant. No details, no confirmation. Just enough ambiguity to let imaginations run. Some students thought it would be a friendly exhibition, a chance to show off powers in a low-stakes environment, maybe get some feedback from Vought reps watching from the sidelines. Others, the ones who'd been here longer and knew how the system worked, understood it wouldn't be that simple. Godolkin didn't do low stakes. Everything here had teeth. In a room on the 3rd floor of the upperclassmen dorm, a live stream was already being planned. 2 students sat with laptops open, mapping out camera angles, discussing optimal streaming platforms, debating whether to go live on multiple channels simultaneously or pick one and drive traffic there. Neither of them were top-ranked. They weren't even in the top 30. But they understood something the higher-ranked students sometimes forgot. Rank wasn't just about power. It was about visibility. And visibility could be manufactured. "We get the first good angle, we're set," one of them said. He had duplication powers, temporary clones, unstable, but useful for coverage. 4 of me, 4 cameras. Sell the raw footage to the networks after. If it's actually interesting. It's Kirby. It's already interesting. The other one, a girl who could manipulate light refraction, frowned at her screen. She'd pulled up old clips of Kirby, watching the way it moved, the way it reacted. Something about it didn't sit right. Not dangerous, just off. like watching a toddler wander into traffic unaware and untouchable at the same time. "You think it knows what's happening?" she asked. "Does it matter?" She didn't answer. It probably didn't. Knowing wouldn't change anything. The event was already scheduled. The cameras were already being prepped. Kirby would show up because Vought said so, and students would do what students here always did: perform, compete, and hope someone important was watching. The next morning, the official announcement went live. Ranking Day trials, Friday, 10 a.m., open format combat assessments with live scoring. And in a bullet point near the bottom, almost casual special guest participant Kirby. Students will have the opportunity to engage in supervised challenges. Supervised. That was the word that stuck. Not friendly, not exhibition. Supervised. Which meant referees' rules, and the kind of structure that suggested someone expected things to go wrong. Within an hour, the student center was packed. Everyone wanted details. What kind of challenges? What were the rules? How many students would get a shot? The staff didn't have answers, or they weren't giving them. Either way, it didn't matter. The announcement had done its job. Anticipation was currency. Vought knew how to spend it. Outside on the steps of the student center, the girl with tactile analysis sat with her crew. They weren't talking, just watching. Calculating. Across the quad, Kirby was being led toward one of the training facilities, surrounded by handlers who kept checking their phones like they were waiting for instructions that hadn't arrived yet. "It doesn't train," one of the top 10 said. A guy with enhanced speed number 6, close enough to taste the top 5, but not close enough to relax. "Vaught's not putting it through drills. It's just there." "Because it doesn't need to train." The girl stood brushing off her jeans. "Or because they don't know how." "So what do we do?" She smiled again, that same sharp, calculating smile. "We find out." By Thursday night, the energy on campus had shifted. It wasn't excitement anymore. It was something tighter, meaner. Students who had been friendly 2 days ago now avoided each other in the halls, unwilling to show weakness or share strategy. Study groups dissolved. Training sessions became private. Everyone was looking at everyone else like competition, because that's what they were. And Kirby, somewhere in a locked facility on the edge of campus, had become the focal point of 100 different plans. The creature itself had no idea. It spent Thursday eating, napping, and occasionally being walked around a small courtyard by a handler who talked to it like it was a pet. It responded the way it always did, curious, cooperative, unbothered. When a group of students passed by and stared, Kirby waved. A few of them waved back. Others just recorded, already composing captions in their heads. One student standing toward the back of the group didn't wave and didn't record. He just watched. He was lower-ranked, mid-20s, the kind of student who'd survive Godolkin but never thrive. He'd seen too many people get chewed up here, seen the desperation, the cruelty that came from tying someone's future to a number that could drop without warning. "That thing doesn't belong here," he said to no one in particular. The student next to him laughed. "None of us do." That was probably true. But it didn't change what was coming. Friday morning, ranking day, cameras, crowds. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a round pink creature that didn't understand what a ranking was, what a camera meant, or why everyone was looking at it like it was the answer to a question they'd been asking their entire lives. It just knew how to wave. And tomorrow that wouldn't be enough. Starlight didn't like leaking information. She'd spent years trying to be the kind of hero who played by the rules, who believed the system could work if enough good people stayed inside it and pushed. That version of her had died slowly, piece by piece, every time she saw what Vought actually did, when the cameras weren't rolling. Now she leaked because it was the only weapon she had left that didn't involve her fists. The message came through a production assistant. Young, nervous, the kind of person who fetched coffee and filed paperwork, and occasionally stumbled across things they weren't supposed to see. He'd sent her a scheduled Godolphin University Ranking Day Trials special guest programming. And buried in the notes, a single line that made her stop scrolling as at K01 origin, undisclosed behavioral profile incomplete. She forwarded it to Huey without explanation. He'd know what it meant. He always did. Huey opened the file on his phone while standing in line for coffee. Bad idea. He nearly dropped the cup when he saw the attached photo, a blurry image of something pink and round being escorted across a campus quad. He stepped out of line, found a corner, and read the whole thing twice. No compound Vi markers, no genetic baseline, unknown capabilities. He called Butcher. "We've got a problem." Butcher's voice came through rough, like he'd been awake too long or not long enough. "We've got 50 problems. Which one's yours?" "Vaught's got something at Godolphin. Not a soup, something else." There was a pause. Background noise traffic, maybe, or a bar. Butcher processed information the way other people chewed food. Fast, efficient. Usually before spitting it back out with commentary. How else though? No V, no file. Just showed up 3 weeks ago, and now they're parading it around like a mascot. "Starlight give you this?" "Yeah." Another pause. Longer this time. Butcher didn't trust Starlight, not completely. But he trusted that she hated Vought, and hate was currency he understood. If Vaught's keeping it off the books, they're either scared of it or planning to sell it. Either way, I want eyes on. Ranking days tomorrow. Public event. Cameras everywhere. Good. Means they can't clean up as fast. Butcher's tone shifted, sharpening into something that sounded almost like enthusiasm. "Get Frenchie. Tell him to pack the quiet shit. We're going to school." By evening, the boys had a plan. Not a good plan. But good plans required resources they didn't have and time they couldn't afford. This was the kind of plan that worked if everyone did their job and nobody got shot. Frenchie sat in the back of a van 2 blocks from Godolphin's east entrance, surrounded by equipment that looked like it belonged in a surveillance thriller and probably cost more than the van itself. Drones. Signal jammers. A laptop running 3 different packet sniffers simultaneously. He hummed while he worked something French and off-key, the kind of sound that drove MM quietly insane. "You're enjoying this too much," MM said from the front seat. He had a tablet open, running through schematics of the campus. Guard rotations, camera placements, exit routes. The unsexy part of breaking into places. "I enjoy all of my work." Frenchie didn't look up. His fingers moved across the keyboard with the practiced ease of someone who'd been hacking things since before it was called hacking. "The question is whether Vought Security enjoys their work. If yes, we have problems. If no," he smiled, "we have opportunities." Huey climbed into the van, last looking uncomfortable in the way he always did before they committed crimes. Which was most of the time. "Butcher's meeting us there. He's already inside." MM glanced back. Posing as a parent, apparently he's very convincing. That's deeply unsettling. Everything about Butcher is deeply unsettling. "You're just now noticing..." Frenchie tapped his screen. Green lines spread across a wire-frame map of the campus. "Their network is garbage. Consumer-grade firewalls pretending to be enterprise. I'm in. Can you access the live stream feeds? Can I access..." Frenchie looked genuinely offended. I can access their cafeteria menu if you're hungry. Just the feeds. Oui. Feeds, camera controls, even the internal comms if they're stupid enough to use campus Wi-Fi, which they are. He pulled up a secondary screen showing multiple video angles of the main arena. Empty now. Tomorrow it would be packed. We'll have better coverage than ESPN. Checked his watch. Butcher wants us live by 9 a.m. That gives you 12 hours. I need 3. Then sleep fast. Across campus, inside a building marked Staff Only, Butcher walked past 2 security guards who barely looked up from their phones. The badge clipped to his jacket read, Facilities Management. He'd stolen it an hour ago from a maintenance worker taking a smoke break. The guy probably hadn't noticed yet. By the time he did, tomorrow would be over, and Butcher would be someone else's problem. He found what he was looking for on the 3rd floor. A storage room with a window that faced the main arena. Perfect sightline. Close enough to run if necessary. Far enough that no one would check unless they had a reason. He tested the door. Locked. He pulled out a small tool that Frenchie had given him. Something that looked like a pen, but absolutely wasn't, and had the lock open in under 10 seconds. Inside, he cleared a space near the window, moved some boxes to create cover, and sat down to wait. Patience wasn't his strongest quality, but he'd learned it the way soldiers learned it. Slowly. Painfully. Through sheer necessity. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to the group, in position. Camera check. Frenchie's reply came back instantly. Seeing you now. You look very official. Fuck off, with pleasure. Butcher leaned back against the wall and watched the empty arena below. Students would fill it tomorrow. Cameras would capture everything. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise and performance and desperate clawing for attention, a pink creature that Vought couldn't control would do something. He didn't know what. Didn't matter. What mattered was being there when it happened, recording it, and making sure the footage went somewhere Vought couldn't scrub. Because if Vought wanted to hide something, Butcher wanted to find it. And if they wanted to sell it, he wanted to break it first. Simple math. Back in the van, Huey stared at the screen, showing Butcher's position. This feels different. Looked over. Different how? Usually we're going after soups. People we know are dangerous. This, he gestured at another feed showing Kirby being walked back to its holding area. What if it's not dangerous? What if it's just there? Then Vought wouldn't be hiding where it came from. Or maybe they're hiding it because it's valuable. Not everything hidden is a weapon. Considered that. He'd been with Butcher long enough to know that the man saw threats everywhere often because they were there, but also sometimes because he needed them to be. Butcher ran on hate. Take away the target and he'd find a new one. You think we're making a mistake? Huey shook his head, slowly. I think we're making a choice. I just don't know if it's the right one. Welcome to the job. Frenchie hummed louder, drowning out the conversation. He'd heard it before. Huey's moral wrestling matches with himself. MM's patient pragmatism. Butcher's absolute certainty that everyone with power deserved to burn. They were all right. They were all wrong. Frenchie had stopped caring which was which a long time ago. He just built the tools and let other people decide how to use them. On one of his monitors, a notification popped up. Incoming data stream. He opened it and found himself looking at internal Vought emails. Someone in their corporate office had gotten sloppy with their password security. He skimmed through the messages. Most of it was boring. Budget discussions, marketing approvals. Then he found one with a subject line that made him sit up. K01 event parameters revised. He read it twice. Mes amis, he said quietly. You need to see this. MM and Huey crowded around the screen. The email was short, clinical. It outlined contingency protocols for tomorrow's event. What to do if the asset became unresponsive. What to do if students were injured. What to do if media coverage turned negative. And buried near the bottom, a single line. In the event of uncontrolled escalation, Special Services Team Alpha will secure the asset for immediate transfer. They're planning to pull it, MM said. Or kill it. Huey's voice was flat. That's what secure for transfer means when Vought says it. Frenchie forwarded the email to Butcher. 30 seconds later, his phone buzzed with a reply. Good. Let them try. We'll have cameras on every inch. Huey read the message over Frenchie's shoulder and felt his stomach tighten. Tomorrow wasn't going to be a publicity event. Not really. It was going to be a test. Vought testing whether they could control something they'd accidentally created. Students testing whether they could climb over each other fast enough to matter. And Butcher testing whether he could burn it all down while the cameras were rolling. And somewhere in the middle of all that, a creature that didn't understand any of it would just be trying to survive. We should warn someone, Huey said. Who? MM looked at him. Campus security. They're on Vaught's payroll. The students, they don't care. They want this. So we just watch. We record. And when it goes to shit, because it will go to shit, we make sure the world sees exactly how. Huey wanted to argue, wanted to find a better option. But he'd been doing this long enough to know that better options were a luxury they'd stopped being able to afford somewhere around the third or fourth time Vought had tried to kill them. Frenchie closed his laptop and leaned back. The drones are charged. The feeds are live. The network is ours. Tomorrow we will have a very good show. MM started the van. Let's hope we survive it. Always so pessimistic. I prefer experienced. They drove back to the safe house in silence. Butcher stayed in his storage room, watching the arena fill with darkness as the lights clicked off one by one. In its holding facility, Kirby slept curled in a corner, making soft sounds that might have been dreams. Or might have been nothing at all. And on the other side of campus, in a dorm room, where the lights stayed on, two late students were still planning, still strategizing, still convinced that tomorrow would be the day everything changed. They were right about that last part, just not the way they thought. Morning came too fast for some people and not fast enough for others. Homelander arrived at Godolkin before sunrise. No announcement, no fanfare. Just a streak of blue and red cutting through the dark sky, landing in an empty courtyard, where the only witnesses were security cameras that would be reviewed later by people who'd say nothing. He liked it this way. Quiet. Controlled. The version of himself that didn't need an audience because the audience would come later when he decided they could. Campus security met him at the entrance. A woman in her 40s with the kind of face that had stopped being impressed by soups years ago. She held a tablet and a badge and didn't bother with small talk. You're early. I like to prepare. Homelander smiled, the warm one. The one that made people feel safe, even when they shouldn't. Big day. Want to make sure everything's perfect. She scanned the badge and handed it to him. Event starts at 10. Press arrives at 9:30. Your entrance is scheduled for 10:15. I know the schedule. Then you know you don't need to be here now. I'm here to help. The guard studied him for a moment. Long enough that most people would have felt uncomfortable. Homelander just kept smiling. Eventually, she stepped aside. Not because she believed him, because arguing with Homelander was above her pay grade, and everyone knew it. Stay out of the prep areas. Tech crews still working. Wouldn't dream of it. He walked past her into the main building. The arena sprawled ahead, massive and dark seats empty but waiting. By mid-morning, this place would be packed. Students, faculty, cameras, the algorithm churning everything into content that would be shared, liked, commented on, and forgotten by dinner. That's what the world had become, a carousel of attention that never stopped spinning. And right now, he wasn't at the center of it. Homelander moved through the corridors like he owned them. Technically, he did. Vought owned Godolkin. Vought owned him. The math was circular, and he'd stopped thinking about it years ago. What mattered was that people here recognized power when they saw it, and they saw it in him. A janitor pushing a cart stepped aside without making eye contact. Two students walking to an early class froze when they saw him fumbling for their phones. He waved. They waved back, breathless, already composing the posts they'd make the second he was out of sight. Simple, predictable, exactly how it should be. But tomorrow, those same students would be posting about something else. Someone else. A round pink mascot that didn't even try, and somehow, that made it worse. Homelander stopped at the arena entrance. Overhead, the rigging stretched across the ceiling lights, speakers, LED panels the size of billboards. All of it suspended by cables and supports designed to hold tons of equipment safely above thousands of people. Engineers had checked it. Safety inspectors had signed off. Insurance companies had reviewed the paperwork. Everything was fine. He looked up at the central support beam. A thick column of steel anchored to the ceiling, branching out to hold the lighting rig. Strong, stable, designed to last decades. But design was just theory. Reality was what happened when theory met enough force in the right place. Homelander's eyes began to glow. Faint at first. Red light building behind the blue. Heat vision controlled and precise, the kind of power that could cut through almost anything if applied correctly. The beam was 15 feet above him. No one was watching. The cameras in the section were pointed at the floor, focused on crowd management, not the ceiling. The beam began to heat. Not much. Just enough to weaken the molecular bonds at a specific point. A cut that wouldn't be visible, wouldn't show up on any inspection, but would matter when weight and stress, surface and gravity all pushed at the same time. He held it for 3 seconds, 4, then stopped. Let the glow fade, blinked like he'd just been lost in thought. Someone coughed behind him. Homelander turned, smile already in place. A tech worker stood there with a ladder and a tool belt, looking confused, but not suspicious. "Sorry," the guy said. "Didn't realize anyone was here. Just admiring the setup. You guys do great work." "Thanks. We try." The tech glanced at his phone. "Pretty sure this area's off limits until after the show, though." "Right. My mistake." Homelander walked past him, clapping him on the shoulder, with exactly enough pressure to be friendly and not threatening. "Looks solid. You should be proud." The tech nodded, still confused, but willing to accept it. Heroes did weird things sometimes. That's what made them heroes. Homelander left him there and headed toward the backstage area where the real machinery lived. Not the lights and cameras. The people. He found the top-ranked students in a prep room, going over their abilities with a Godolkin faculty advisor who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. 5 of them. Young, hungry. The kind of desperate that came from knowing you were close to something and terrified of losing it. Homelander knocked once and walked in without waiting for permission. The room went silent. The advisor stood up too fast, knocking her chair back. "Sir, We weren't expecting. Relax, just wanted to meet the talent before the show. He looked at the students, scanning faces, reading body language the way predators read prey. You're the top-ranked group, right? The girl with tactile analysis spoke first. Confident, direct. We are. Excited for today. Very. Good. Homelander stepped further into the room, not threatening, just present. Today's a big opportunity. Eyes on you. Scouts watching. One good performance and you're set for life. One bad one. He shrugged. Well, there's always next year. No one said anything. They didn't need to. He could see the calculation in their eyes. The weight of what he'd just said. He wasn't here to encourage. He was here to remind them what was at stake. Kirby's the special challenge, right? He said the name casually. Like it didn't matter. Like he hadn't memorized every piece of data on the creature. Cute little guy. We're ready for it, the girl said. I'm sure you are. Homelander's smile widened slightly, cold around the edges. Just remember, this is your moment. Don't hold back. Show everyone what you can do. Make me. He paused. Make them remember you. He left before anyone could respond, walked out of the prep room and down the hall past staff members who pressed themselves against walls to give him space. His reflection caught in a glass door. Perfect. Controlled. The smile still in place. But underneath something else churned. Not anger. Not yet. Just certainty. Today would go exactly how he planned. Students would attack Kirby because he'd told them to without ever actually saying the words. The rigging would fail because he'd made sure it would. And when chaos erupted, when people panicked and cameras rolled, he'd be there. Saving lives. Restoring order. Being exactly what everyone needed him to be. And Kirby, that strange, impossible smiling problem, would disappear in the rubble. An accident. A tragedy. Unavoidable. Vought would mourn publicly and bury the evidence privately. The students would take the fall for causing the disaster. And he'd be the hero who tried to save everyone, because that's what heroes did. Simple, clean, effective. Homelander stepped out into the courtyard as the sun started to rise. The campus was waking up. Students heading to breakfast, staff checking equipment, the energy building towards something inevitable. He could feel it in the air. Anticipation, excitement, fear disguised as enthusiasm. He looked at his reflection in a window, adjusted his cape, made sure every detail was perfect. Because when the cameras turned on, when the world watched, he couldn't just be good. He had to be flawless. And if being flawless meant erasing a problem before it grew into something bigger, then that's what leadership looked like. Tough choices, necessary sacrifices, the kind of decisions that separated gods from children. Somewhere across campus, Kirby was waking up, eating breakfast. Probably being walked around a courtyard by handlers who treated it like a pet, completely unaware that in a few hours the stage would collapse and everyone would blame it for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Homelander smiled to himself. A real smile this time, not for cameras, just for him. Enjoy the attention while it lasts, he said to no one. To the morning, to the empty air. Then he lifted off, rising above the campus, circling once before heading back toward the city. He'd return later, when the cameras were ready, when the audience was watching, when the performance could begin. But the work was already done. The beam was compromised. The students were primed. The trap was set. All that remained was waiting for the moment to spring it. And Homelander was very good at waiting. 10 a.m. came with the sound of 1,000 phones unlocking simultaneously. The arena filled fast. Students poured through entrances, claiming seats, setting up cameras on tripods and phones on selfie sticks. Faculty members tried to enforce some kind of order and gave up within minutes. This wasn't an academic event. This was content. And content didn't wait for permission. The main floor had been cleared and marked with colored zones, testing areas for different power types, each one designed to be camera-friendly. Bright, visible, easy to clip into 15-second videos. Overhead, the massive LED screens cycled through sponsor logos and student rankings, updating every few seconds as the algorithm processed new data from social media engagement. A leaderboard showed the top 20 names. Most of them were already here, stretching reviewing notes, pretending they weren't watching each other. Announcers took their positions at a broadcast booth suspended above the crowd. 2 of them, a man and a woman, both with the kind of enthusiasm that came from being paid to care. They ran through sound checks, while a camera crew adjusted angles and lighting, making sure every inch of the arena could be captured from at least 3 perspectives. "We're live in 5. Someone called from production. The female announcer adjusted her earpiece and smiled at the camera. Bright, professional. "Welcome to Godalkin University's annual Ranking Day trials, where tomorrow's heroes prove themselves today. I'm Jessica Torres." "And I'm Brandon Chen. We've got an incredible lineup this morning, including a very special guest that I guarantee you've been seeing all over your feeds. Kirby, the newest face of heroism. Literally the cutest addition to the Vought family. Cute and reportedly very powerful Jessica. We've heard rumors about some unique abilities. Well, we're about to find out. Students will be participating in supervised challenges with Kirby throughout the morning. Should be exciting. Should be unforgettable. The cameras went live. The red lights blinked on. And 10,000 people watching from home joined the 500 already in the arena, all waiting for the same thing, something unexpected to happen. Kirby was brought out onto the floor at 10:07. 2 handlers walked beside it, moving slowly, keeping space between the creature and the crowd. Phones went up instantly. The LEDs switched to show a close-up of Kirby's face, round pink, those black eyes blinking in the lights. The crowd made noise, not quite cheering. More like the sound you'd make at a zoo when they bring out the pandas. Excited, delighted, completely unaware that pandas could bite through bone. Kirby waved. The crowd waved back. In the broadcast booth, Brandon leaned into his mic. "And there it is, folks. Kirby looking ready for whatever today brings." Jessica laughed. Light. Easy. I don't think ready is the word. It looks like it just woke up. Well, let's see if our students can wake it up a little more. Backstage, the top-ranked students were already moving. The girl with tactile analysis, her name was Erin, though most people just knew her as number 3 led the group toward the floor entrance. 5 of them total. All top 10. All wearing the kind of expressions that came from knowing cameras were pointed at them and needing to perform. "We're not waiting for an invitation," Erin said. Not a question, a statement. The guy with kinetic absorption, Marcus number 4, cracked his knuckles. "They said supervised challenges. That means we get to engage." "They didn't say when." "Then I guess we decide when." Another student, a girl with light manipulation, hesitated. "What if they pull us off? Then we got footage before they did. Either way, we win." Erin checked her phone one last time. Social media was already exploding. clips of Kirby waving, speculation about what would happen, betting pools on which students would step up first. Come on, before someone else takes the shot. They walked onto the floor, not running, walking, confident, like they'd been invited. The cameras caught them immediately. The announcers noticed half a second later. "Oh, looks like we've got early participants," Jessica said. "That's Aaron Zhao, ranked 3rd overall, leading what appears to be, yes, that's most of the top 10 approaching now." Bold move. They're not waiting for formal introductions. Why would they? This is ranking day. You don't climb by waiting. The handlers noticed. One of them spoke into a radio, probably asking for instructions. But instructions took time. And time was the one thing the students weren't giving anyone. Aaron stopped 10 feet from Kirby. The creature looked at her, tilted its head slightly. Curious, maybe. Or just noticing something new in its environment. Hard to tell. "Hey there," Aaron said, friendly tone, "for the cameras. Want to play?" Kirby blinked. Marcus moved first. Fast. Kinetic absorption meant he could take a hit and barely feel it, which made him perfect for testing unknown opponents. He closed the distance in 2 steps and swung a fist at Kirby's side. Not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to provoke a response. Kirby moved, not away, toward. It leaned into the punch, and Marcus's fist connected with something that felt less like flesh and more like a gym mat that had been left out in the rain. Soft, dense, weird. Marcus pulled back, frowning. "What?" Kirby inhaled. Not breathing, inhaling. The air around Marcus's hand bent inward, pulling at his arm, his shoulder, his entire body. He stumbled forward, caught off guard, and suddenly his feet weren't on the ground anymore. He was moving toward Kirby's mouth, which had opened wider than it should have been, physically possible to open. "Shit!" Marcus twisted, activated his power, tried to absorb the force pulling him. But you couldn't absorb suction. You couldn't punch air. Kirby's mouth snapped shut. Marcus was still there. Whole. Confused. But his jacket was gone. Just gone. Vanished. Swallowed. The arena went silent for exactly 1 second. Then the noise hit like a wave. Students screaming, laughing, recording, posting in real time. The announcers stumbled over each other, trying to describe what just happened. And Marcus stood there shirtless, now his jacket having been the only thing close enough to Kirby's mouth to get caught. "Roll it!" someone shouted from the crowd. "Keep rolling." Aaron's eyes lit up. Not fear. Opportunity. She moved next, activating her tactile analysis as she approached. Her power let her see weaknesses in anything she touched. Structure, composition, breaking points. She reached out fast and pressed her palm against Kirby's side. Data flooded her mind. Not the usual information, not weak points or stress fractures. Just density, endless density, like trying to analyze a black hole. Her power stuttered, overloaded, and she pulled back with a gasp. "It's solid," she said to no one, to everyone. "It's completely solid." Kirby looked at her, made a small sound, not aggressive, just acknowledging that something had happened. The other students moved in. Not coordinated, not planned, just reacting to the same instinct that made sharks circle when they smelled blood. Except the blood was views, engagement, proof that they could handle whatever vaught through at them. A student with electrical projection fired a bolt at Kirby's feet. The ground sparked. Kirby jumped higher than something that rounds should have been able to jump and landed on a piece of equipment that immediately bent under its weight. The student with duplication powers created 3 clones and had them surround Kirby from different angles, trying to pen it in. Kirby spun, looked at each clone, then inhaled again. The suction hit all 3 clones simultaneously. They stumbled forward, arms windmilling, and 2 of them lost their shoes. Just the shoes. Kirby swallowed, made that humming sound again, and the clones dissolved as the original student lost focus from sheer confusion. The announcers were losing their minds. I have never. Brandon, are you seeing this? I'm seeing it, and I don't believe it. Kirby just did it, eat their equipment. It ate Marcus's jacket. It ate shoes. I think it might eat anything. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. In the audience, phones were everywhere. Students filmed from every angle. A few faculty members tried to intervene and got pushed back by the crowd, which had decided collectively that whatever was happening on that floor was more important than safety protocols. More students joined. Not top-ranked anymore. Mid-tier. Lower. Anyone who saw an opening. They came at Kirby with fire-ice force fields, enhanced speed. A girl with density control threw a punch that should have shattered concrete. Kirby dodged, or didn't dodge so much as just wasn't where the fist ended up, and the girl's hand went through the space where Kirby had been and hit a standing banner instead. The banner collapsed. She pulled her hand back, knuckles split, blood dripping. "Keep rolling," she screamed at her friend with the camera. "Get the blood. Get it." Kirby finally stopped moving defensively and started moving with intent. Not aggression. Intent. It inhaled harder, longer. The suction expanded from a targeted pull to a vortex that grabbed everything loose in a 15-foot radius. Backpacks, water bottles, a student's hat. Someone's phone still recording as it spiraled toward Kirby's mouth and vanished. "Oh my God." The voice came from someone in the front row. "It ate my phone. It ate my fucking phone." Students who'd been advancing started retreating. Not from fear, from calculation. This was getting dangerous. Dangerous was good for content, but only if you survived to post it. A few backed off entirely, checking their own footage already editing in their heads. But the top-ranked group stayed. Because retreating meant admitting defeat, and defeat meant dropping in the rankings. That wasn't acceptable. Aaron grabbed a piece of broken equipment metal bar, about 3 feet long, and swung it at Kirby like a bat. The bar connected with Kirby's side and bent. Just bent. Like hitting a tire. Kirby didn't move, didn't react, just looked at her with those dark, unblinking eyes. Then it opened its mouth and inhaled again. The bar got sucked straight out of Erin's hands. She tried to hold on. Couldn't. The bar flew into Kirby's mouth, and Kirby swallowed without chewing. The bar was gone. Erin stared at her empty hands. Marcus came back for another attempt. Faster this time. Smarter. He grabbed Kirby from behind, trying to pin its arms. But Kirby's arms were stubby and useless for grabbing, which meant they were also useless for pinning. Marcus's grip slipped. Kirby wriggled free and spun, mouth already opening. Marcus's belt got inhaled. His pants sagged. The crowd lost it. Laughing, screaming, recording every frame. Did Kirby just pants him? Jessica's voice had gone from professional to borderline hysterical. Did that just happen on live television? It did. It absolutely did. Marcus backed off, holding his pants up with one hand, face red. Not from exertion, from humiliation. His ranking was dropping in real time. The leaderboard updated. Number 4 became number 5. Aaron looked at the cameras, at the crowd, at Kirby standing there in the middle of the chaos, covered in dust and scratches, but still just there. Not fighting, not attacking, just existing in a way that made everyone else look like idiots. She made a decision. A bad one. She grabbed another student kid with enhanced strength number 7 and shouted over the noise. Hit it together, full power. Make it react. It's already reacting. Make it do something we can sell. That was the moment. The instant when the event stopped being a test and started being something else. The enhanced strength kid nodded, wound up, threw a punch with everything he had. Kirby inhaled. Not a targeted pull, a full vacuum. The kind of force that grabbed air dust and anything not bolted down within 20 feet. The punch never landed. The student got pulled forward off balance and stumbled face first into Kirby's side. His nose hit that dense, impossible surface and broke. Blood sprayed. He fell backward, hands over his face, screaming. The crowd went silent again. Shorter this time, half a second. Then someone yelled, "Holy shit!" And the arena erupted. Medics rushed onto the floor. Faculty finally pushed through the crowd, shouting for everyone to back up. The handlers grabbed Kirby and tried to pull it away from the chaos, but Kirby wasn't moving. Not resisting. Just standing there, looking confused, like it didn't understand why everyone had suddenly started panicking. Because it didn't. Above them, unnoticed by everyone focused on the floor, the rigging creaked. Metal stressed beyond its limits, weight pulling at supports that had been compromised hours before. A single beam weakened by heat vision, holding tons of equipment with less strength than it should have had. The beam cracked. A sound like a gunshot. And everything stopped. Students looked up. Cameras pivoted. The announcers went quiet mid-sentence. Even Kirby tilted its head toward the ceiling, where the massive lighting rig was beginning to sag just slightly toward the center of the arena, toward where everyone was standing. Someone screamed, "Move!" But crowds don't move fast. Crowds panic. And panic is just chaos pretending to have direction. The rig dropped 6 inches. Cables snapped. Sparks flew. The LEDs flickered and died, plunging half the arena into shadow. And in that shadow, standing perfectly still while everyone else ran, Kirby looked up at the falling metal and made a small sound. Not fear. Curiosity. The rigging didn't fall all at once. That would have been cleaner. Faster. What happened instead was worse, a slow-motion collapse that gave people just enough time to understand what was coming without enough time to get out of the way. Another cable snapped. Then another. The massive LED panel tilted 45 degrees and hung there suspended by 3 remaining supports that screamed under the weight. Sparks rained down like fireworks. The arena's emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in harsh white that made shadows look sharper and panic look clinical. Students ran. Not in any organized direction, just away, toward exits that were too narrow upstairs that were already packed into each other. Someone fell. 3 people tripped over them. A girl with flight powers lifted off and smacked into the ceiling, disoriented, forgetting that panic and altitude don't mix well. The announcers' voices cut through the chaos, no longer enthusiastic. Just loud. Everyone needs to evacuate in an orderly. The panel dropped another foot. The broadcast cut to static. On the floor, Kirby stood in the center of what had been a combat zone and was now rapidly becoming a disaster area. The handlers had already run. Smart, trained. They knew when a situation was beyond their pay grade. Kirby watched them go, then looked back up at the swaying metal above. Sparks reflected in those dark eyes. curious, still not afraid. A section of scaffolding broke loose and fell. 20 feet, fast. It hit the ground where students had been standing 15 seconds earlier, punching a crater in the arena floor and sending debris flying. A piece of metal caught a girl in the shoulder. She went down screaming, clutching the wound, while her friends dragged her toward the nearest exit. Then Homelander arrived. Not arrived. Descended. Through the skylight, cape billowing, landing with the kind of precision that made it look effortless. The emergency lights caught him perfectly, blue suit, red cape, that smile already in place. Hero pose, textbook. Stay calm. His voice carried across the entire arena without amplification. Super lung capacity. One of the abilities that didn't make it onto the highlight reels, but was useful in moments like this. I'm here. You're safe. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at the cameras. 3 of them still running. Backup batteries. Exactly where he'd expected them to be. Students who'd been running toward exits stopped. Turned. Some of them pulled out phones again, because if Homelander was here, this was footage you didn't miss. The calculus shifted. Danger versus content. Content was winning. Homelander flew up to the sagging panel, grabbed the nearest support cable, and made a show of inspecting it. Frowning, concerned. He touched the compromised beam, the one he'd weakened hours ago, and shook his head like he'd just discovered the problem. Structural failure, he called down. The whole rig's unstable. Everyone out. Now. People moved. Not because they wanted to. Because Homelander had told them to, and disobeying Homelander felt wrong on an instinctual level. Faculty members finally found their authority and started directing traffic. Orderly. Controlled. The panic began to organize itself into something manageable. Homelander floated back down, landing near Kirby. Close, not touching. He looked at the creature with an expression that might have been concern if you didn't know better. If you hadn't seen him practice that exact look in mirrors. You okay, buddy? Kirby tilted its head, made that soft humming sound. We need to get you out of here. Homelander reached out like he was going to pick Kirby up. Gentle, protective. The kind of gesture that would look great in photos. His hand was 6 inches away when Kirby's mouth opened and a vacuum pull yanked at his glove. Homelander pulled back fast. Too fast. Instinct overriding performance. The glove stayed on, but barely. He looked at his hand, then at Kirby, then at the cameras. Smile returning. Forced, but functional. Playful little guy, he said, louder than necessary. Let's get you somewhere safe. He didn't try to grab Kirby again. He gestured for it to follow him, walking toward an exit. Kirby didn't move. Just stood there watching the rigging sway, watching sparks fall, watching Homelander walk away, and then stop when he realized he was alone. Homelander's jaw tightened, barely visible. The smile stayed. Come on. We need to go. Kirby sat down, right there on the floor, like it was taking a break. Above them, another support gave out. The panel dropped 3 feet in a single lurch and stopped swinging like a pendulum, casting wild shadows across the arena floor. The few remaining students screamed and ran faster. Only a handful were left now. The stragglers, the injured, the ones filming who didn't want to miss the climax. And Kirby, still sitting, still calm. Homelander's expression shifted. Just for a second. The mask slipped. Frustration, anger. The realization that this wasn't going according to plan. The creature was supposed to be in danger. He was supposed to save it. That's how this worked. That's how it always worked. But Kirby wasn't cooperating. And the cameras were still rolling. In a storage room 300 yards away, Butcher watched it all on Frenchie's monitor. Multiple feeds, every angle. The main cameras, the backup cameras, and 3 of Frenchie's drones hovering outside the arena's broken skylights. "He's staging it," Butcher said. Not a question. A statement of fact delivered with the tone of someone confirming what he'd suspected all along. Huey leaned closer to the screen. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen him save people. This ain't it." Butcher pointed at Homelander's body language on the monitor. That's performance. He wants it to look chaotic. Wants to be the one who restores order. MM was on another laptop, recording everything. Multiple redundancies, cloud backups. The kind of documentation that survived hard drive failures and Vaught's cleanup crews. If he wanted to save it, he'd have grabbed it and left by now. He's stalling. Why? Because he needs witnesses. Needs the right kind of disaster. Just dangerous enough to look real, just controlled enough that he can fix it. MM paused, the footage zoomed in on the beam where it had snapped. That breaks too clean. Metal doesn't fail like that naturally. Frenchie pulled up thermal imaging from an hour before the event started. The beam glowed orange in one specific spot. Heat signature, recent. Someone cut it, not all the way through, just enough to weaken, then waited for weight and stress to finish the job. "Homelander," Huey said. "Who else so much?" Butcher lit a cigarette even though they were indoors, and MM hated it. "Cut sets up an accident, plays. Hero gets rid of the pink problem in the chaos. Clean, efficient, fucking textbook." On the screen, Homelander was trying again to get Kirby to move. The creature still wasn't cooperating, just sitting there looking up at the swaying panel with what might have been curiosity or might have been nothing at all. MM checked his watch. VSS is probably already on site. They'll lock this down fast. Let them. We've got the footage. And then what? Butcher smiled. Thin, mean. Then we send it everywhere, they can't delete it. Back in the arena, black SUVs were pulling up to every entrance. Vought Special Services, the cleanup crew. Men and women in tactical gear with the kind of efficiency that came from doing this too many times to count. They moved through the crowd, separating students, confiscating phones, offering NDAs with the casual authority of people who knew that most civilians would sign anything if you made it sound official enough. One of them approached Homelander, spoke quietly, too quietly for the cameras to pick up. Homelander nodded, said something back, then turned to face the remaining crowd with that smile still locked in place. "All right, folks, the professionals are here. If you have any footage from today's events, we're going to need you to hand over your devices. Temporarily. Just while we assess what happened. Safety protocols." A few students protested. Not many. VSS had that effect on people. You could argue with campus security. You couldn't argue with people who moved like soldiers and spoke like lawyers. Phones were collected. Cameras were tagged. One student tried to run with his phone still recording. 2 VSS agents intercepted him at the exit. Polite, firm. The phone was in their possession within 10 seconds. But they couldn't get everything. The broadcast booth was outside their immediate perimeter. Frenchie's drones were invisible at that altitude. And scattered throughout the crowd, students who'd already uploaded their footage to social media were deleting the originals from their devices and handing over empty phones with the kind of practiced deception that came from growing up online. The panel groaned. Metal fatigue, physics asserting itself. It was going to fall. Not now. Maybe not for another minute. But soon. And when it did, anyone still on that floor would be underneath several tons of lighting equipment and steel scaffolding. Homelander looked at Kirby, at the cameras, at the VSS team moving through the arena like ants at a picnic. Then he made a decision. He flew straight up, grabbed the panel with both hands, and held it. Muscles straining, cape dramatic. The picture of heroic sacrifice, saving everyone from the disaster he'd created. The cameras caught it all. The perfect angle, the perfect lighting, the perfect lie. "Get out," he shouted down. "All of you, I can't hold this much longer." The remaining students ran. VSS moved faster, establishing a perimeter, pushing everyone back. The arena emptied in 90 seconds. Everyone except Kirby, who was still sitting on the floor, looking up at Homelander, holding several tons of equipment with an expression that might have been admiration or might have been absolutely nothing. Homelander looked down at it. At this strange, impossible creature that had derailed everything. And for just a moment, a fraction of a second, his expression changed. The smile dropped. The mask fell. What was underneath wasn't anger. It was something colder, more certain. He let go of the panel. Not all the way, just shifted his grip, let it drop another foot. Cables snapped, sparks flew. Kirby watched them fall like snow. Then Homelander caught the panel again, held it, looked at the cameras and nodded. Reassuring, in control. The message was clear. He'd saved everyone. He'd prevented disaster. And if anything happened to the creature after this, well, accidents happened. Especially around unstable equipment and anomalies that didn't belong. The panel creaked one last time, and Homelander smiled. The arena was empty now. Officially. Security had swept it twice. VSS had established a perimeter, and every student who'd been inside was now outside being processed, having their devices checked, signing papers they didn't read. The evacuation had been clean. Professional. Exactly what you'd expect from an organization that had practiced making disasters disappear. But cameras don't evacuate. Not all of them. 3 broadcast units still ran on battery backup, their operators long gone, but their lenses still recording. Frenchie's drones held position outside the broken skylights, silent and invisible at altitude. And scattered throughout the upper seats, a dozen phones wedged into cup holders and backpack straps, kept filming left behind by students who'd learned that the best way to keep footage was to make VSS think they'd already surrendered it. Homelander lowered the panel carefully, not dropping it, guiding it down with the kind of precision that showed he'd never actually been struggling to hold it. The metal groaned as it settled against the floor, warped but stable, safe. He landed next to it, cape settling around his shoulders, and looked directly at the nearest camera. "Crisis averted," he said. Calm, authoritative. "Building's clear, everyone's safe." He turned to leave, 3 steps toward the exit. Kirby was still sitting on the floor, right where it had been, not moving, not leaving, just there. Homelander stopped, his shoulders tensed, barely visible. The kind of micro-expression that lasted a fraction of a second before control reasserted itself. He turned around slowly, smile fixed, and walked back toward the creature. "You need to go," he said. Quiet. No cameras could pick it up at this distance. Just him and Kirby and empty space. "They're clearing the building. You can't stay here." Kirby blinked at him, made that soft sound again, curious. "I'm not asking." Kirby tilted its head. Something in Homelander's expression changed. The smile thinned. His eyes tracked to the cameras, still recording, still broadcasting to whoever was watching. He couldn't just leave. Couldn't walk away from this thing sitting in the middle of a disaster zone looking completely unbothered. That would raise questions. Questions led to speculation. Speculation led to narratives he couldn't control. He needed Kirby gone, and if it wouldn't leave voluntarily, he'd make it leave. "All right, buddy." Louder now, friendly for the audience. "Let's get you somewhere safe. Come on." He reached down, fast, grabbed for Kirby's arm. Kirby inhaled. The vacuum hit Homelander's hand like a physical force. Not strong enough to move him. He was Homelander, nothing moved him, but strong enough to pull at his glove, his sleeve, the cape draped over his arm. He yanked back instinctively, and his glove came off. Just the glove, pulled straight into Kirby's mouth and swallowed in one smooth motion. Homelander stared at his bare hand, at Kirby, at the cameras. His smile didn't drop, couldn't. Too many people watching. But his voice when he spoke had edges. "Give it back." Kirby blinked. "I said give it back." Another blink. That soft hum, content. Homelander's jaw tightened. He could feel it. The anger building hot and sharp, the kind that made his vision tint red around the edges. But he couldn't lose control. Not here, not on camera. Heroes didn't lose control. Heroes stayed calm. Heroes, Kirby burped. A small sound, almost polite. Something inside Homelander snapped, not all the way, not into the screaming rage that lived underneath everything. Just enough. Just past the point where performance mattered more than resolution. "Fine," he said. "You want to do this here? We'll do it here." He flew straight up, 20 feet, 30, then dove fist extended, aiming for center mass. Not to kill, not yet, just to hurt. To make it understand that there were consequences for making him look stupid. Kirby rolled, not fast, just moved. Homelander's fist hit the floor where it had been punching a crater in the concrete, sending cracks spiderwebbing outward. He pulled back, adjusted, swung again. Kirby was already somewhere else, not dodging with skill, just not being where the punch ended up. Like trying to hit fog. "Stand still." Kirby sat down again. Looked up at him, waiting. Homelander grabbed a piece of scaffolding, 200 pounds of metal, and hurled it. Fast, accurate. The kind of throw that would have killed a normal person instantly. Kirby opened its mouth. The scaffolding got sucked in. Gone. Swallowed like candy. The arena went quiet for a moment. Not silent. There were still sounds. Distant sirens, VSS radios crackling, Frenchie's drones humming at frequencies just below human hearing. But inside, where Homelander and Kirby faced each other, something had shifted. The performance was over. Now it was just anger and instinct and physics that shouldn't work, but did. In the storage room, Butcher leaned forward. "Here we go." MM checked the recording status. Every feed active, every angle covered. "He's losing it." "Good. Let him." Butcher grabbed his phone and started typing. Fast. Sending coordinates, timestamps, streaming links. "Huey, get Starlight. Tell her to push this everywhere. Reddit, Twitter, Discord, every live stream platform that Vought can't kill fast enough." Huey was already moving, phone pressed to his ear. "She's on it. Says she's got back channels at CNN. Tell her to use them all. I want this on breakfast television by tomorrow." On the monitor, Homelander was circling Kirby, calculating. The creature just tracked him with its eyes rotating in place, but not standing, not running, not fighting. "Why isn't it fighting back?" MM asked. "Because it's not a fighter," Huey said quietly. "It's just trying to exist." Well, existence is about to get complicated. Homelander landed hard. The impact cracked the floor beneath his boots. He walked toward Kirby slower now, more deliberate. Grabbed his cape with one hand and held it away from his body, protecting it. "You think this is funny?" His voice had dropped. Lower. Dangerous. "You think you can just show up and take what's mine?" Kirby made that humming sound. "I'm talking to you." The hum continued, unbothered. Homelander's eyes began to glow, red light building, heat vision, enough to cut steel, enough to vaporize flesh. He aimed at the ground next to Kirby, not at it, next to it, a warning shot that carved a molten line across the concrete. Kirby looked at the glowing line, leaned forward, sniffed it. "This is your last chance. Leave, now." Kirby looked up at him, tilted its head, then opened its mouth and inhaled again. This time the pull was stronger, much stronger. The kind of vacuum that grabbed air dust, debris, and anything loose within 15 feet. Homelander's cape whipped forward, caught in the current. He grabbed it with both hands, pulling back, but the suction was physics, and physics didn't care about strength. The cape's clasp, a small metal pin that attached it to his suit, snapped. The cape flew forward, pulled into Kirby's mouth in a red and yellow blur. Gone. Swallowed. Disappeared. Homelander stood there, capeless. For the first time in public since his debut, bare-shouldered, exposed. The cameras caught it. Every angle, every frame. The moment Homelander stopped being perfect. He looked down at his shoulders, at the empty space where his cape should have been. At Kirby sitting there with its mouth closed, not even having the decency to look satisfied. When he looked back up, his eyes were fully red. No restraint, no performance, just rage. "You," Kirby burped again, louder this time. Homelander screamed. Not words, just sound. Raw and animal and furious. He flew at Kirby with everything he had, hands extended, ready to grab, crush, destroy whatever this thing was that dared to humiliate him. Kirby inhaled. Full force. The suction caught Homelander mid-flight, pulling him off course, slamming him into the ground 20 feet from where he'd been aiming. He hit hard. Concrete cracked. Dust exploded outward. He was on his feet instantly, faster than human perception. Charging again, fists flying. A dozen punches in 3 seconds, each one strong enough to level buildings. Kirby rolled, dodged, moved. Not gracefully, just reactively. And each time Homelander's fist missed and hit the floor instead, the arena shook. Cracks spread. Support columns groaned. "Stop moving." Kirby stopped, right in front of him, close enough to touch, looked up with those dark, expressionless eyes. Homelander grabbed it. Both hands. Finally. He lifted Kirby off of the ground, holding it at arm's length like a parent holding a misbehaving child. "Got you." Kirby inhaled, point blank, 6 inches from Homelander's face. The suction hit him like a punch. Not painful. Worse than painful. Embarrassing. His hair blew forward. His eyes watered. His perfectly styled appearance dissolved into chaos. And worst of all, he felt his grip loosening as the vacuum tried to pull his hands into Kirby's mouth along with everything else. He let go. Dropped Kirby, staggered back, wiped his face. His hands came away wet. Not blood, tears, involuntary. physiological response to wind hitting eyeballs. But on camera it looked like he was crying. "You little fucking..." The word caught in his throat. He couldn't say it. Not here, not now. Not with every camera in the building still pointed at him. Kirby landed on its feet. Somehow. Impossible physics made physical. It looked at Homelander, then at the nearest camera, then back at Homelander, and waved. That was the moment. The exact second when Homelander stopped being a hero and became something else. Something smaller. Something human. He lunged at Kirby with no technique, no strategy, just violence. Grabbed, punched, tried to laser. Kirby kept moving, kept dodging, kept inhaling at exactly the right moments to pull Homelander off balance. They fought across the arena floor. Or rather, Homelander fought. Kirby just reacted. Each exchange ended the same way: Homelander, missing hitting infrastructure, making the building less stable. Lights fell. Ceiling panels cracked. The scoreboard broke loose and crashed down narrowly, missing both of them. The noise was overwhelming. Metal shrieking, concrete breaking, Homelander shouting. Not words anymore. Just rage vocalized. And underneath it all, alarms. Fire alarms, structural alarms. Every warning system in the building screaming that the arena was coming apart. In the storage room, MM adjusted recording settings to compensate for audio distortion. This is it. This is everything. Butcher watched Homelander miss another grab and punch straight through a support column. Beautiful. Absolutely fucking beautiful. He's doing our job for us. "What about the pink thing?" Frenchie asked. Should we what? Save it?" Butcher didn't look away from the screen. "It's doing fine. Better than fine. It's winning. It's not fighting. Doesn't have to. It just has to exist. And every second it exists next to him without dying, he looks weaker." On the screen, Homelander grabbed a broken piece of rigging and swung it like a bat. Kirby ducked. The metal hit a lighting rig and shattered. Sparks rained down. Some landed on Homelander's suit. He didn't notice. Didn't care. Just kept swinging, kept missing, kept destroying. Huey's phone buzzed. Multiple notifications. "It's live. Starlight got it on 3 major platforms. Already 50,000 viewers. Tell her to caption it. Something simple." "Like what?" Butcher thought for exactly 2 seconds. "Hero loses control. That's going to make Vought. I don't give a fuck what it makes Vought. Send it." Huey typed, "Sent." Watched the view count climb. 60,000, 80,000, 100,000. Back in the arena, Homelander finally stopped. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. His chest heaved. Sweat dripped from his face. His perfectly maintained appearance was gone. Hair disheveled, suit-torn face flushed red with exertion and fury. He looked human. Exhausted. Breakable. Kirby sat down again, 10 feet away, watching, waiting. "Why won't you die?" Homelander's voice was hoarse, raw. "What are you..." Kirby tilted its head. That same curious gesture, like it was asking the same question back. Homelander's eyes glowed. One last time. Heat vision, full power, aimed not at Kirby, but at the floor beneath it. If he couldn't hit it, he'd eliminate the ground it stood on. The concrete melted, glowed orange, started to collapse. Kirby jumped. Somehow. Those stubby legs shouldn't have been able to generate that kind of force. but it launched straight up 20 feet and came down on top of the nearest intact structure, a support column conveniently located, impossibly balanced. It landed, steadied, looked down at Homelander, and from that angle backlit by emergency lighting covered in dust and small debris, Kirby looked almost triumphant, not intentionally, just by accident of positioning and perspective. But the cameras caught it. The drones caught it. Every remaining recording device in the building caught the same image, Homelander, standing in a crater of his own making, looking up at a small pink creature that had just made him look like a fool. Homelander flew up, fast, furious, grabbed the column Kirby was standing on, and ripped it out of the floor. The column came free. Kirby fell. Not far. Kirby grabbed onto Homelander's arm mid-fall. Those stubby appendages that shouldn't have been able to grip anything somehow latched on. Hung there, dead weight. Homelander tried to shake it off. Couldn't. Tried to grab it with his other hand. Kirby inhaled. The suction pulled at his face, his chest, his hair. He flew erratically, trying to maneuver with extra weight, trying to see through the vacuum, distorting his vision. He crashed into the arena wall, hard. The impact left a crater. Dust exploded. Kirby let go, fell, landed on its feet somehow, and immediately sat down like nothing had happened. Homelander pulled himself out of the wall. Slowly. Everything hurt. Nothing was broken. He was Homelander, things didn't break him, but everything hurt in that deep way that meant his body had been pushed past limits it wasn't used to reaching. He looked at Kirby, at the cameras, at the destruction around them, and realized he'd lost, not the fight, the narrative. Everyone watching this would see him fail to defeat something that wasn't even fighting back, would see him lose control, would see him weak. VSS burst through the doors, a dozen agents, full tactical gear, moving in formation. Their commander spoke into a radio. Securing the asset, subject appears intact. Initiating transfer protocol. No, Homelander's voice cut through. I'm handling this. Sir, our orders. I don't care about your orders. This is my jurisdiction. The commander hesitated. Homelander outranked everyone. Technically, but VSS had protocols, and protocols existed specifically for moments when soups went off script. Sir, with all respect, the building's unstable. We need to evacuate immediately. Homelander looked at Kirby one last time. The creature sat there, unbothered, unstoppable, existing in defiance of everything he represented. Fine, he said. Take it. Lock it down. I want it gone. He flew straight up, through the broken skylight, into the sky, away, escaping not from danger, but from humiliation, from the footage that was already spreading, from the moment when the strongest man in the world lost to something that smiled. VSS moved in, surrounded Kirby. The commander approached carefully. We need you to come with us. Kirby looked up at him, blinked. Can you understand me? Kirby tilted its head. Okay. Let's do this carefully. One of the agents had a containment unit, reinforced, designed for dangerous anomalies. They opened it, gestured for Kirby to enter. Kirby looked at the box, looked at the agents, then walked into the containment unit and sat down inside like it was the most natural thing in the world. The door closed, locked, sealed. The commander spoke into his radio. Asset secured, transferring to Site 7 for evaluation. They carried the unit out. Efficient, professional. The kind of operation that looked routine because they'd done it before. The arena emptied for the second time, this time permanently. Above, circling at high altitude where no cameras could reach Homelander, watched them go. Watched his humiliation get packed into a box and driven away. Watched the drones and cameras finally power down as their batteries died. He touched his shoulders, where his cape should have been. Where it would never be again, not this one, not the one that had been part of his image since the beginning. And somewhere far below, in a box in the back of a van, heading toward a facility that didn't exist on any map, Kirby sat in darkness and made that soft humming sound. Content. Still curious. Completely unaware that it had just changed everything. By 2 p.m., Vought had a statement ready. Press release. 300 words. Carefully constructed to say everything and nothing. They called it an unprecedented incident involving structural failure and an uncontrolled anomaly. Homelander was described as having heroically prevented mass casualties through decisive action. Kirby was referred to only as an undisclosed asset currently undergoing evaluation for public safety concerns. The word fight didn't appear anywhere. Neither did defeat or humiliation, or any variation of ate his cape on live television. Those words existed in reality, just not in Vaught's version of it. Ashley delivered the statement to a room of reporters who'd been waiting outside Godolkin's main gate for 3 hours. She stood behind a podium, makeup perfect voice, steady reading from a tablet with the kind of professional detachment that came from years of turning disasters into talking points. But Turner, and we want to assure the public that all students and faculty are safe. The individual responsible for today's structural damage has been secured and will be transferred to a facility equipped to handle anomalous entities. Sidra-san. Vought takes full responsibility for this incident and will be conducting a comprehensive review of all safety protocols. A reporter raised her hand. Can you confirm that Homelander engaged the entity directly? Homelander acted with characteristic courage to protect civilians from an unpredictable threat. There's footage circulating online showing, we're aware of unauthorized recordings. Our legal team is working with platform administrators to remove content that violates privacy and safety guidelines. Another reporter. Is the entity dangerous? Ashley's smile didn't waver. All anomalous subjects require proper containment and evaluation. That's standard protocol. But is it dangerous? Next question. The press conference lasted 12 minutes. Ashley answered 23 questions, directly addressed none of them, and left through a side door before anyone could ask about the cape. Because of course they'd ask about the cape. Everyone would ask about the cape. The cape was already a hashtag. Cape Eaton Lev. 200,000 tweets in 4 hours. Memes. Reaction videos, frame-by-frame analysis. Someone had set the footage to cartoon sound effects. Another person had created a supercut of every time Homelander missed a punch. A third had made a compilation of Kirby's most unbothered moments set to lo-fi hip-hop. The internet had decided this was funny, and once the internet decided something was funny, Vaught's ability to control the narrative dropped to somewhere near 0. Butcher watched the view counts climb from the safe house. Laptop open. Beer in hand. The closest thing to satisfaction he'd felt in months spreading across his face like warmth. 3 million views, MM said from across the room. He was monitoring multiple platforms simultaneously, tracking which clips were getting taken down and which ones were spreading too fast to stop. CNN picked it up. So did BBC. It's international now. Good. Butcher took a drink. Let it spread. Let the whole world see their golden boy get his arse handed to him by a pink balloon. Huey sat on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through reactions. His expression was complicated. Not quite happy. Not quite guilty. Somewhere in between. People are calling it fake, staged, saying Vought would never let this happen if it was real. People are idiots. Some of them are saying Kirby's the villain, that it attacked him first. Then they didn't watch the same footage we did. Pulled up the uncut version, the one Frenchie's drones had captured, showing Homelander cutting the beam, manipulating the students, staging the entire disaster. This version's already on 6 different platforms. Vought's taken down 4. 2 are still up. How long before they kill those? Maybe an hour, maybe less. But it's already been downloaded 30,000 times. You can't delete that many copies. Butcher smiled, thin and mean and satisfied. No, you can't. Frenchie walked in from the kitchen with coffee that smelled like it had been made hours ago and reheated twice. The forums are having arguments. Some say Homelander could have killed it, but chose not to. Others say he tried and failed. Very entertaining. What do you think? Huey asked. Frenchie shrugged. I think we live in a world where a man who can fly and shoot lasers from his eyes got defeated by something that eats jackets. The truth is much more interesting than propaganda. On one of the monitors, a news anchor was trying to explain the situation to viewers who hadn't seen the footage. She used words like alleged and unconfirmed and awaiting official statement from Vought representatives. But her expression suggested she'd seen the clips. Everyone had seen the clips. This doesn't save anyone, Huey said quietly. Kirby's still locked up. Homelander's still free. Vought's still operating. No. Butcher set down his beer. But it does something better. It shows cracks, and cracks spread. Give it time. How much time? However long it takes. That wasn't an answer, and everyone knew it. But it was the only answer they had. The world didn't change overnight. It changed slowly. One piece of footage at a time, one person deciding they didn't believe the official story, one crack in the foundation that led to another and another until the whole structure started to list. Maybe. Or maybe Vought would do what they always did, outspend, outlast, and outlive every scandal until people forgot or stopped caring. History suggested the latter was more likely, but for now, for this afternoon, the internet was laughing at Homelander. And that counted for something. Across the city in a penthouse that felt emptier than usual, Homelander stood in front of a mirror. He'd showered, changed suits, fixed his hair, erased every physical sign of what had happened. But the mirror showed him something he couldn't fix: shoulders that looked bare even with fabric covering them. A silhouette that was incomplete. His phone had been ringing for hours. Ashley, his agent. PR representatives. He'd ignored all of them. They wanted him to do damage control, public appearance, statement of strength, show everyone that he was fine, in control, still the hero they believed in. But he wasn't fine. And he couldn't make himself pretend he was. Not yet. Not while the footage was still spreading. Not while people were laughing. He'd killed people for less than laughter. Removed entire problems for the crime of making him look weak. But this, he couldn't kill. The footage existed in too many places. Kirby was secured, but not destroyed. And the damage to his image was already done. For the first time in years, Homelander felt something he'd forgotten how to feel: doubt. Not about his strength. He was still the strongest, still the fastest, still the best. But strength didn't matter if people stopped believing in it. If they saw him struggle, if they watched him fail. He picked up his phone, ignored the calls, opened social media, scrolled through the hashtag he should have known better than to look at. Harach Cape Eaten Live. Videos, memes, commentary. People dissecting his every move, pointing out mistakes, analyzing failures. They weren't afraid. That was the worst part. They weren't even angry. They were amused. Like he was entertainment. Like he was a joke. He threw the phone. It hit the wall and shattered. Plastic and glass and lithium batteries scattering across expensive hardwood. It didn't make him feel better. Nothing would make him feel better. But someone would pay. Eventually. Someone always did. At Godolkin, VSS had finished their work by evening. The arena was sealed. Students were released with NDAs and instructions not to speak to media. Faculty were debriefed and reminded that employment contracts included confidentiality clauses. Every phone that had been confiscated was returned with its storage wiped clean. Most students left quietly. A few tried to protest. One threatened to lawyer up. VSS listened patiently and then handed him a document outlining exactly what would happen if he violated the NDA. He signed. Everyone signed. Because that's how it worked. The ranking board outside the student center had been shut down. Indefinitely. An announcement said they were reviewing protocols for competitive events and ensuring student safety going forward. What it meant was that Vought had decided the whole system had become a liability. One student stood looking at the dark board for a long time. Mid-ranked, not important. The kind of person who'd never make it past Godolkin, no matter how hard they tried. He'd seen the whole thing. Been in the arena. Watched Kirby defend itself without fighting. Watched students chase fame straight into disaster. Waste of time, he said to himself. All of it. He walked away. Headed toward the dorms, thinking about transfer applications, about schools that didn't have ranking systems or Vought sponsorships or surveillance cameras in every hallway. Probably wouldn't find one. But he'd look. Behind him, the campus settled into an uneasy quiet. Too quiet for a Friday night. Usually there'd be parties, celebrations, people riding high on adrenaline and accomplishment. Instead, there was just exhaustion. The kind that came from surviving something that shouldn't have happened and knowing it might happen again. Somewhere in transit, in an unmarked van, on an unmarked road, heading toward a facility that didn't officially exist, Kirby sat in its containment unit. The inside was dark, padded, temperature-controlled, designed to hold dangerous things safely and humanely until someone decided what to do with them. Kirby didn't mind darkness, didn't mind confinement, didn't understand that either was supposed to be punishment. It just sat there in the space provided and made soft sounds to itself, content, still curious, wondering vaguely when someone would bring food. The driver spoke into his radio. ETA 20 minutes. Asset remains stable. Copy that. Holding cell is prepared. The van drove on, headlights cutting through dusk, taking Kirby away from cameras and crowds and the chaos that seemed to follow it everywhere. Taking it toward a future that was uncertain at best and terrible at worst. But Kirby didn't know about futures, didn't know about consequences, didn't know that what it had done existing in a way that made heroes look small was the kind of thing that powerful people never forgave. It just knew that the box was warm and moving was interesting, and eventually someone would open the door. And when they did, Kirby would be ready for whatever came next, even if whatever turned out to be worse than anyone expected. The van disappeared into the night. The city moved on. The hashtag kept trending. Vought kept spinning. Homelander kept raging in private while smiling in public. And somewhere in the machinery of it all, a small crack had formed. Barely visible, easy to miss. But cracks don't stay small forever. They spread. Given time, given pressure, given enough people who see them and decide not to look away. The world didn't change that Friday, but it shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. And in a world where Vought controlled everything, enough was something. Maybe even something that mattered. Or maybe just another story that would be forgotten by Monday. Buried under newer scandals, fresher content, the endless cycle of attention that churned through everything and remembered nothing. But for now, for this moment, a pink creature that didn't understand fame had become famous. A hero who couldn't be beaten had been humiliated. And a group of people who'd spent years trying to tear down an empire had gotten exactly what they wanted: proof that the empire could bleed. Whether that proof would be enough was a question for later. For now, the sun was setting. The cameras were off. And somewhere in the dark, Kirby was humming.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to turn on notification so you won't miss out future videos. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.